What's up, everybody? Welcome to Bingetown TV. This is Brian here with my co hosts, producer Dave and Paul. And today we are going to be covering episode 4 of season 4 of Amazon Prime's The Boys, one of our favorite shows of all time. Before we get into it, why don't we do a little bit of housekeeping? If you are interested in us, want to find out more about us, maybe see some of our other coverages, go on over to bingetowntv.com. It has our entire library. We've covered previous seasons of The Boys as well as Gen V. House of the Dragon is just about to start. So if you're looking for coverage on that, we got you covered, and you can find that over on bingetowntv.com. If you are listening from our The Boys feed, why don't you go find us on our flagship Bingetown TV feed? Just the easiest, most free way you can support our podcast is just hitting that follow button, whether it is the Boys feed or Bingetown TV feed. It takes a second and then you forget about it, and it means the literal world to us. Other than that, we do have a blossoming Discord community growing, and we are going to be talking the Boys. We love putting our theories in there, and you know, if it's a good theory, you might even find yourself getting mentioned right here on the podcast. So housekeeping out of the way, we obviously covered the first 3 episodes. Episode 4 has, Dave, I think you texted us, or maybe we were playing video games and you were just like, things are starting to move. You were the first one to watch it. And I should shout out Amazon because they killed it by giving us screeners for this show. We are recording on a Monday, a couple days prior to this episode dropping. So we haven't seen the public opinion to it. But look at me, I'm just talking too much again. What did you guys think of episode 4?
I mean, best episode of the season, right? By far. It has to be. We get a little bit of Homelander backstory. We get the huge Starlight reveal. I just think this episode was the drama, the action, everything was perfect. This is peak The Boys content right here. And it sucks to see. I've been seeing the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, I believe it is. Like, critics have it at a 9.6 or something like that, something crazy high, which I support. I think it's definitely up there. But audience is at a 5.8 and 58%, which I think it's probably just because of how political things have gotten. But that hasn't changed the aspect of the show for me, that I still think this show is 10 out of 10. The drama that we've been getting, especially in this episode, is absolute content, and I live for it. And I think it's 10 out of 10. So,
yeah. I mean, how tense was this entire episode? Whether it was flashing between Homelander and his crazy revisiting of his past, or with, the Firecracker versus Starlight, just confrontation on worldwide screens. So it was absolutely nuts. Definitely my favorite episode of the season so far, without a doubt. We didn't get too much Sage. We got a little bit of Sage. Just enough of the Deep, probably not enough of the Deep. The Deep, he's just so money anytime he's on the screen.
I'm applauding your theory, Paul, from last episode. You were absolutely right.
Right on the money.
Yeah, we got a little confirmation there. That was kind of cool that they gave it to us, or at least let us sit on it for an episode and theorize about it. They didn't just straight up give it to us. So, like the Deep gave it to the Sage. Anyway, still really good episode. And I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't even know where the show takes off, like starting episode 5.
I agree with you guys. Probably the best episode of the 4. Anytime we get a diabolical Homelander arc confined in one episode, that usually makes for some top tier The Boys content. And sure enough, I mean, that's exactly what we got here. One notable absence from the episode was Ryan, who we spent 20 minutes talking about how all of the storylines this season seem to be swirling and revolving around Ryan. He was notably absent from this episode. I think he was only name dropped the one time where Butcher kind of has a heart to heart with MM and says, yo, if anything happens to me, you got to make sure to carry on the torch and make sure that you protect Ryan from Homelander. But that was really the only mention of him, which I thought was surprising.
Yeah. I mean, exactly what you said. We just spent episode 3 gushing about him. So it was surprising, but it kind of makes sense because Homelander was off doing his own thing. And I feel like Ryan and Homelander are so intertwined. And yeah, Butcher couldn't be a dad right now. He was too busy
Yeah.
reaching back to his old self. But I mean, while we're on it, that scene with oh my gosh, how you never see Butcher get, literally heartfelt and emotional. So I just warmed my heart seeing that. I don't know about you guys.
I
When
needed
you're
to
ge-
see that scene from Butcher. I love it. Butcher's vulnerability is always great. It's always good for his homies, and this was a scene that I think was much needed between the two. And I think now the stakes are there, and we'll see what happens. But I'm glad that they've patched things up for the time being.
when you're getting close to the end, it'll soften you up. But something else I want to say about Butcher, Dave, I think you brought it up and we were like, what? I didn't see that. There's definitely a parasite or a worm or something
Nope.
crawling around his face.
Got to give it to Paul again. Got to give it to
Okay, that
Paul.
was Paul. Paul's 2 for 2. All right, big
Yeah.
dog. I see you. But
Yeah, he's on a podcast, guys.
No, I mean, and the thing is, it got exponentially bigger from. Okay, well, maybe we don't know what the power is yet, but from what we saw, it was only a little guy not too long ago, and now it's freaking huge. There could be multiple in him, and whatever it is, we didn't see it. We kind of saw the aftermath of it, which I can only imagine it's something nasty. But we get a reveal that might as well just say it now.
yeah,
Butcher took Temp V 4 months ago.
Compound V.
Or I'm sorry,
Compound V.
Compound V. So this was after the Temp V situation, and he was looking for an answer. So he takes the real V, but there's been an ongoing thing that it takes better in children. So this was kind of like an issue that we knew about way back in season 1. Like you can't just give it to adults. That's why it had to be Temp V, because they had to give the adults power somehow. So I don't know. It's a little interesting that that's a plot point with Huey right now. We'll kind of get into that.
Fine. I'm about to show my hand right now. So this is going to be probably the best contribution that I have to the podcast, and it's not even my contribution. So Alki has a theory that after hearing that Butcher took Compound V, Alki has a theory going that he believes the tumor in his head is the one that receiving the powers of the Compound V, and the tumor is now transformed into a parasite with powers. Just something to throw out there. It's very possible.
Put it on the
I really like the theory from Alki personally. I think it's a good chance. I think I brought it up last podcast. I'm under the presumption that Butcher is going to die, and I still think his death would probably mean more for the show as a whole if that does happen. But I think this would be a cool twist for him to live if the tumor ended up getting the powers versus him, and he somehow they get separated somehow, and he's able to live through that. But we'll see where it goes. I think that was a really good theory though by Alki.
No, definitely. I can see that. I like that. So the tumor was formed by the Temp V, and then upon taking the Compound V in desperation, it actually just went straight to the mass in his brain, and that turned it into definitely could be something like that, something crazy. Like,
well, at this point in time, Butcher is a one-of-one case study. I doubt anybody in the universe has taken Temp V and then taken Compound V. So we're in uncharted territories. Regardless, whatever's going on is making him wildly powerful because he blacks out, wakes up, and Ezekiel is painting the inside of Firecracker's trailer. So
yeah,
he still has some serious power, but obviously the show has not quite yet revealed it to us. So we've kind of already been hitting it. This episode, we are going to approach from buckets. There's kind of this big storyline of Starlight House. Right across the street is VNN's Firecracker Truth Bomb special, and there's a lot going on there that kind of sucks in a lot of the boys. Frenchie has a little one-off scene with Colin, which unfortunately is just becoming a storyline that I could not care less about. But we do kind of figure out what exactly happened there, which is important. Huey and his mom, obviously him seeking out the Compound V with Kimiko. And then we are going to end with the amazing Homelander scenes here. So I guess the first time we see Starlight, is when she's going to Bob Singer. And as we know, Bob Singer is trying to put a little bit of a constraint on soups. So he is proposing this anti-soup legislation just to keep them regulated, keep them in check, keep them out of the military, out of the police force, etc. And Starlight goes and essentially says, hey, listen, these ads that you're running at like 11 p.m. at night are not going to cut it. Use my platform, use my superstardom to support your anti-soup bill, and we could actually get this thing passed.
Interesting. Because obviously Starlight doesn't want to make a big deal about being, Starlight anymore. She wants to be Annie now. And she kind of willingly said, I will go back. I will go in a freaking superhero uniform outfit if it means it'll help take Vought down. And that was her main bargain. That's what she wanted from this whole bargaining deal, was to just take Vought down. And what she's talking about, she needed like 50 million people to sign to get it passed or something like that. And that's what was going to happen, or was going to help push it through. But I don't exactly know how that works. I wonder if you guys even had any idea, because
no, not really.
Anyway, that totally backfired. But real quickly, that transition into Singer started from the Cameron Coleman show, and which they usually use, those TV ads to switch back and forth. Right before that, we did get a Gen V reference.
Yes, we did.
They called it the Godolkin 4.
Yep.
And how they disappeared. So they're in the news, they're out there, but they have just disappeared, and that's what the public knows. Which
it was in the dark gaping hole. It was the dark gaping hole of Godolkin.
Yes, exactly. So,
and as far as the public is concerned, they are the terrorists. They are the evil people, the villains in that scenario. We still have yet to hear of Kate and Sam, to my knowledge. So it's interesting to see when they're going to enter the fray here. But like I said, Vought is setting up this firecracker 7-hour truth bomb bonanza right across the street from Starlight House, which is a giant slap in the face. We have Sage back at Vought Tower just kind of breaking down exactly how they are going to methodically besmirch and destroy Starlight's reputation and her career. Dave, I was just listening back to our first episode. Like, pairing that brilliant mind with Homelander is just unfair, because she is definitely not to be trifled with. I mean, she's the stinking smartest person in the planet.
It's unfair, but it makes for such great television. I mean, I shiver whenever I see both of them on screen, because I know something awful is going to happen. That's usually their MO, I feel like. So, yes, I agree. For the boys, it sucks, but for us as viewers, I think it's amazing. It's so fun to watch, man. Watch those two just collide and just plot out how they're going to take over the world, essentially.
Yeah, and it's all Sage. Like, they're all in a meeting, and Sage is telling them all what to do. They're all individual roles. Like, she gives Firecracker that iPad with a unicorn sticker on the back, and that was, the big, the little truth bomb at the very end. But even before then, like, Deep walking up to Sage after she dished out all the orders, trying to get lunch with her.
Yep.
She goes, I find you repulsive in a way that's hard to quantify. Like, I'm good at quantifying things. So he's like so confused right now. Poor Deep.
He's fine. He's always got his backup waiting in his closet.
And Noir goes, can we talk to Sage? Which Sage goes, no. So I'm just waiting for Noir to snap at some point. He's going to go off in front of a camera or something.
Yeah, I don't really know what Noir's place is, but I like that we have a Noir that talks, at the very least. Dave, you've been raving about him so far.
Yes, I think this Noir is hilarious, and I love him when he's actually vocal. But to be honest, I'm thinking of him as fodder, I think, going forward. I think this Noir is going to kick the bucket eventually to Homelander, and then I think the then on permanent Black Noir comes in and takes spot, who I don't know who it's going to be. I've heard some people like come up with the idea that they thought Sam was going to be Noir in this season, which that would be a crazy theory. That's a crazy theory. I think that is possible. I don't think it's the main theory, I would say, for Black Noir, but regardless, I think this one's going to be fodder just based on how much Homelander already hates him.
So moving right along, Butcher was kicked out of the boys in episode 3, and the first half of this episode, already goes back and says, "All right, come back in, Butcher. Come back to the boys. You're back in." Much to the chagrin of Annie, but I mean, they need him. And
Why?
go
Why
ahead.
though? Why was she so pissed about Butcher coming back? Like,
I
was
don't
she
even
that
know, dude.
No, it was
anti-Butcher before that?
yeah. I mean, it was the whole Temp V thing. At first, she called Butcher and was like, "Hey, tell Huey that this stuff's going to kill you." And technically, he never did. But Butcher ended up locking Huey in that bathroom to save him from taking it. So I think she just hates the fact that Butcher holds so many secrets. I personally, they just have. Huey's been spewing it all season 3. They need Butcher. Butcher is the final piece. They need to just cross that line, and Butcher's always the guy to do it. You need someone like that on your squad. You can clearly see Firecrackers doing it. So now you need to get that muscle back on your side.
Annie, go ahead, Paul.
I'm kind of annoyed with Annie a little bit, just because this scene, she says that she's like, "Oh, I don't want Butcher back." Like, but then Butcher, the first thing he does is ask why Firecracker is so mad at Annie in the first place, and she just lies. So it's like, you're not helping the case, really. You know exactly why, and I get that you'd be embarrassed to say, like, "Yeah, I was mean when I was 13," but at the same time, the stakes are so high. Let the boys know, and maybe they can help. So I was a little upset with her that she didn't just share that information right there after being upset that Butcher's even back in the equation. So I don't know.
I agree. I think it's been a bad look these first 4 episodes for Annie, and there's not much else you can say about it. It's showing us her in a different light as she has been portrayed in previous seasons. She's supposed to be this heroine. I mean, like the moral compass of the boys, like the good
Yeah.
guy. Well,
And
her and
she
Eminem.
is. And like she is. That's who she's become. But we're just, obviously with the 13-year-old thing. But like she also hasn't gotten a chance to do anything real nice and real good. Like in these first 4 episodes, she's only had times to like act and do the bad thing instead of do nothing, which obviously I'm more talking about this episode, but we'll get more into that. So I don't know. I feel like she's due for a really good second half of the season.
And I think
Agreed.
that's going to come with I think she's going to really start to harness her powers a lot better. And I think there's going to be a great superhero moment for her later in the season.
God, I hope so. It only would
But I
have
agree.
taken them 4 seasons.
Yeah, I agree. Annie has definitely had a rough season, and she's not been one of my favorites so far this season.
All right. So while the Deep and Firecracker are singing a duet of "Love Lifts Us Up Where We Belong," and Butcher are snooping around for some dirt on Firecracker, which actually gave him $50,000 of CIA clean money to support this snooping operation, which I guess is noteworthy.
Well,
But
do you know what the 50K was for?
tell me.
He said it real quick, but as Brian said, we have screeners, so we don't have subtitles, so it's a little hard to hear sometimes. But I'm pretty sure he said, "Yeah, well, coffee enemas. I'm sorry, not coffee enemas. Heroin enemas aren't cheap." So,
Dude, I rewound that like 5 times because he's heavy in the accent there. It's Butch. I was like, I'm just not going to understand what this says. So thank you.
I'm pretty sure that 50K was to buy enough heroin to give a superhero an enema, which I don't think they say which superhero, but if you guys watch Diabolical, there's one episode where they have Great Wide World, and I'm pretty sure they said that that the Great Wide World takes heroin enemas. So
Okay.
it's like that one, because that episode was a little weird because it's not the boys universe we know, but
Right.
it's still related. So it was, I don't know, it seemed like a shout out to it. So it was a cool little
Interesting, okay.
crossover.
Yeah.
So, and sure enough, they do find the dirt on Firecracker. The problem is, Firecracker turns the tables on them. She knows that she cannot allow herself to be blackmailed, so she just owns it. Sent the dirt being, of course, that she, when she was in her late 20s, hooked up with a 15-year-old at Capes for Christ. She sends the tweet herself. She's like, fine, fucking send it. And then she goes out onto her VNN, interrupts Ezekiel's preaching, and says, "Oh Lord, like this prior indiscretion, this sin, put me on the path to righteousness, and everybody just appreciate that I have turned to Christ and put me on the right path, and all of this." And the crowd gets behind it. She got on top of the story, and nobody really gives a crap if you own it, I suppose. But this was for a second there, I was genuinely like, oh, they got Firecracker right where they want him, because this has been a very powerful tool against Soups, is blackmailing them. They all care about their reputation and their public image. Firecracker is kind of above that, or maybe her audience can just be convinced that easily. Either way, this was like a wow moment.
Oh, 100%. I think this was a great moment for Firecracker to establish herself officially as a villain in the 7 for us. And you're right. I mean, I totally thought they had her with how she was reacting to the tweet that they were about to post. She looked like that she was about to get cornered, and nope, she does it herself. And the irony of it all is that, she obviously has all these supporters that wear Starlight is a pedo. Like, they all have these shirts. Meanwhile, Firecracker is the actual pedo. So it all is just full circle, man, with the boys. But fuck, man, Firecracker is definitely dangerous.
Yeah, she definitely twisted that in an instant, which was slightly impressive. My question is, why didn't she like hit them? It's like MM and Butcher. They killed her friend the episode before. Why didn't she just she hit tweet and walked away? I wouldn't be like, why wouldn't you try to take them down for a second? But I don't know. Maybe she was in the zone. She was already flipping it.
You always assume they have a backup contingency plan, and it's not worth the 20 seconds of lines to say, and if you kill us here, then Huey's back at base and is going to hit send to everyone.
Well, it's also broad daylight. Who knows if there's cameras rolling somewhere? You can't go around just killing 2 random people. Whether or not they can twist the story to their favor.
Yeah, I mean, not even kill them, but get somebody to arrest. Whatever. Anyway, it's not that big of a deal. But I love the line by Butcher. Just gotta, quote it real quick. You and your little beaver edging in the back of your RAV4 in the car park of Buca de Beppo. And he's just smirking the whole time.
He's got such a way with words.
His dialogue is amazing. I basically was typing all of it just because it was so funny. But it just would have been me reciting the whole script. It's just he's amazing, and we keep referring to next season as if he'll be gone. It feels like it's building up to it. I hope he's not, because we love him so much. But if he is gone, the boys just gonna lose that special little something that makes it that Butcher adds to it.
So the other part of this Firecracker reveal is that she immediately changes the narrative. Once she apologizes for her past indiscretion, she says, but let's not forget about Firecracker. I don't know if you guys know this, but on her first ever save, she blinded a mother of 3 in Iowa. So just kind of airing Starlight's dirty laundry. And then we flash to Annie, who storms out of the room at Starlight House. And I only mention this because we get a new Frenchie nickname. I don't know if he's ever called her Mademoiselle Annie.
Yeah, that was awesome. Love when he calls out.
So speaking of Frenchie, we can just talk about this Colin stuff right now. Yeah, there's one scene where he says, oh, I still remember the killer. I was hiding under the bed the night it happened. That's the only way I got away. And I saw he has these scars on his ankle. And Frenchie's like, better cover up my ankle real quick. And then the next scene, he reveals that it was back in his little Nina days, as we were kind of guessing at. But that's really all it is.
Yeah, when you referred to it earlier, Brian, and you were talking about these scenes about the plot line you could care less about. And I get that that's an exaggeration. Obviously, we care about Frenchie, but I agree that it feels so misplaced. I don't know what it is. We love Frenchie. He's literally was ranked in our top 2 or 3 going at the end of last season. So I don't know, but just seeing him depressed and then this whole thing come out of nowhere. It's not I want them to put more screen time to it, because I don't even know if that'll fix it. It just seems so in the middle of these outrageous scenes, and it feels like I don't have any like emotion behind them for some reason, which I don't understand, because I love Frenchie and everything with him and Kimiko. I was very emotional about last season, so it's something's off, and I don't know what it is.
I think it's just because they're introducing a new character with an entirely new plot line that wasn't. I mean, yes, we got little Nina last season, but again, even that was a plot line that only got introduced last season. So this is kind of all relatively new information for us, and it was never fully alluded to. So it does feel like they're kind of grasping at straws a little bit. I won't say I dislike it. I mean, there's always going to be that one storyline in a show like this that we all don't care about, just because the stuff around it is just so much more entertaining and more important as to the story itself. But I just think at this point, Frenchie's relationship with this guy, to me, should be completely done. I mean, there should be there should be no going back for either of them. Once you drop a bomb like that on someone, there's no way that person can ever love you again. Personally, in my experience. In my experience, yeah. In my experience watching TV, I feel like,
a lot of it for me is that we already knew that Frenchie has this tragic, horrible backstory, that he was a murderer at the hands of little Nina and was just her dog. So none of this is a reveal for us. It's just now he's forcing a relationship with someone who he affected from his past horribleness. And it's like, we always know that Frenchie is not quite a masochist, but someone who puts himself through pain because he thinks he deserves it. I don't need to see that fleshed out to this extent. And Colin's fine. It's just like he doesn't have any place in the story. I want Frenchie to be with Kimiko or just like doing shit with the boys. This is just, like you guys said, very out of place. But that is the Frenchie and Colin storyline, unless you guys have anything else to say.
No, not on that one, though.
I just felt like the reveal came out of nowhere when he showed that. Like, I don't know. It felt kind of exactly like you were saying, like a little rushed, but like not exactly like we even want more screen time on it. So I don't even know where it's going to go. Like you said, like once you drop this bomb, you got to be done, right? But like, yeah, obviously it's going to be a storyline throughout. So yeah, how's that first conversation going to go?
And to keep beating a dead horse for the storyline, even if they do get back together, how does Colin help the ultimate goal? Like, will Colin get roped into the boys' gang? Like, it just feels like that would be extra for me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Like, if Colin's done by the end of the season, I don't know. It just kind of seems like a filler in the season 4. I don't know, but we're assuming, so we'll see where it goes.
Last thing I want to say is I'm hoping they're not just trying to force this big emotional storyline for Frenchie and then it's curtains for him like at the end of season 4.
Oh, that would be the worst outcome.
And their way of making us, the audience, care more about it, when in reality, we don't really care about this storyline.
Frenchie's we've seen him have the lowest of low moments. We don't need him getting his lover killed now too. I think that's just crazy. I think that would drive any man insane.
And if you disagree with us, let us know in the YouTube comments and the Discord. But I would like to hear from someone who is loving this Frenchie and Colin storyline. But we will cut it there for the Frenchie and Colin stuff. Next time we see Frenchie is actually joining up with the boys because he is now snooping around Firecracker's trailer after Butcher and MM got made. And he finds, I guess, the medications that he found in her purse are the biggest thing. And I didn't quite know what they were. My only guess was the medication that Adira had Kate on at Godolkin to kind of suppress powers, because we had the reveal of her quick, like, little snap gunpowder move, and someone was like, oh, that's pretty weak and unimpressive, so maybe her powers are being hindered and she's actually really strong, but probably not likely. She probably just has some mental issues.
I thought she just put the pills, or Frenchie just looked at the pills and put them down, right? I don't think they, based on his reaction, I don't think that was like the biggest dirt that he grabbed there. And was the iPad that he picked up just revealing Starlight's abortion?
That
Yeah.
was the
Okay.
iPad with the unicorn sticker that
Okay.
Sage gave to her. It was like, this is going to be the big twist.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I Googled the name of the medication and I didn't actually write down the name of the medication, but
Metoclopramide.
I'm pretty sure it just helps with nausea and vomiting, um, often with chemotherapy patients.
Oh.
So it was also either that or like people with gastroesophageal reflux. So like whatever.
Yeah, say it
You
again.
know?
No, say it again. I want to
Yeah.
say it.
So out of the two, chemotherapy seems to be more Hollywood than gastroesophageal reflux. So
I
I don't
didn't
know.
even bother looking it up because it was branded as a Vought product. So I thought it was like a made up superhero medicine, but you actually did get a Google hit for it.
Yeah, so it's either her power says some weird side effect, or maybe her backstory is she is just going through chemotherapy. But I
Okay.
like yours a lot better because that would connect it to Gen V, and anyway, those two kind of intertwine in World Bid. I kind of dig. So
Yeah, for sure.
I don't
like
feel
that.
strongly about that because I think I just don't see her as like a world beater soup. You know what I mean? Someone who's like really that strong, but who knows? This scene really gets away from us because Ezekiel finds Frenchie snooping around and Frenchie gets his ass beat pretty good here, and then Butcher kind of comes in and intervenes, and we already talked about that, how Butcher blacks out, and this is the last we're gonna see of Ezekiel.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
he was all over the place.
Yeah.
The most solid part of his body was his head. Everything else was like mush or liquid. So like I don't know, when we talked about it a little bit, so we're not going to go crazy into it. I don't know if that parasite came out, destroyed Ezekiel, and then left, or I assume it went back into Butcher. I don't know if Butcher literally becomes something. We have no idea. So it's like all speculation. But I just right now I'm going with the theory that there was a bug parasite inside. No, I don't even know.
Yeah.
It's just impossible to guess. But I guess it goes back inside of him. Otherwise,
I think
what's the
so. I
go?
feel like because we've brought up the idea that it's a parasite, I think it still needs a host no matter what. So I think Butcher will be that host still going forward. And I mean, he blacks out during these moments, so he has no recollection of what goes on in these moments. So that's not doesn't
But-
help anybody, but
So like Zoe, like we don't even like talking about her powers with the shit coming out of her mouth that devours things. Do you think they're just constantly in there and like folded away, or do she think she turns her tongue into it?
Oh god, that is such a gross power. I have not thought of the mechanics. I have to believe it somehow goes away because who would want to live like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think if Butcher can literally call this out and it's just always in there and then it goes back in. But I guess we'll see. But it's nasty.
yeah, I can't believe going back and rewatching episodes, whatever, 1 to 3 with like Luke and Alki. I can't believe I didn't notice that like you did, Paul, that it was a parasite. I really just, it was so obvious that it was a worm inside of him. And I just can't believe we missed that. Me and B-Toms missed that somehow.
Well, they certainly made it obvious for us in episode
Yes.
4, so we caught on eventually. But not to be overshadowed, obviously Butcher destroys Ezekiel, but Starlight has had enough. She marches across the street and on live TV after having it revealed that she had an abortion. She can't sit down and take it anymore, so she just beats the crap out of Firecracker, which is exactly... Sage could not have hoped for a better response on live TV. Another bad look for Annie. I understand. I completely understand the feeling, but she needed restraint there. She is playing right into what it was.
She waited really maybe like 8. She just needed to wait like a couple hours, meet her in a dark alleyway, and maybe then get her 2 cents in. But yeah, not a great look, man. Not a great look.
Yeah. I mean, I get you black out with rage and you don't really care, but like, come on, in the context of things, you must realize that this is going to be a horrendous and terrible look. Like, there's literally cameras everywhere. I don't know. It's frustrating to watch because you feel like Starlight wouldn't make that. Like, Annie wouldn't make that mistake usually. She's usually like the calm, cool, collective moral compass, like you were talking about, Brian. So I don't know. I get she's having like it was a slow build up too because she did reveal, how you were talking about Starlight on her first save blinded a mother and stuff like that. So it wasn't just like one initial snap. It was over a time and then a snap, but still upsetting because she's just absolutely destroyed right now. Like her reputation is so in the drain.
Yeah. So, and that kind of takes us back at the Flatiron. At this point, the other storylines have concluded and a lot of the boys make their way back to the Flatiron. So Huey's there to console her and essentially says Firecracker's a piece of shit. Like, I totally understand. Don't worry about it, as a supportive boyfriend would. But at the same time, the political fallout is already taking place. We see Newman fielding an interview where she is politically distancing herself from Bob Singer's anti-soup bill, which is headlined by Starlight's support, which now is as good as dirt. And sure enough, Singer calls her on the phone and says, hey, after that stunt you pulled, I don't want your support. I need to distance myself from you. You and our political alliance is over. So it kind of any momentum they had to do something good and curtail the soup's efforts has been stopped. The momentum is gone, and Starlight's just kind of down in the dumps right now.
Yeah, this was absolutely brutal line delivery by Singer when he goes, but after what you pulled today, it might as well be called the Psycho Starlight Baby Killer Bill. And that's just not what she needs after this long day of horrible things happening to her. So he's such an interesting character because he can deliver a line like that. He's one of those people like Edgar where they hold so much power where even Newman is cautious around him. So he's an interesting character, but holy shit, that was like the last nail in the coffin on Starlight's day. That was insane. She just got done telling Huey how every time like someone looks at her, she has to relive making that decision over and over again because she feels like she's being judged for it. And yeah, that didn't really help quell that fear of people staring. So thanks a lot, Singer.
The only way to heal this is by taking Firecracker down, but how do you do that? We've already tried that with the whole pedo thing, and that didn't really go so well. So I guess there's got to be a secondary, because you're not taking her down physically. Like, you have to take her support down first, and then you can kick her ass to get your supporters back. So be interested to see how they redeem Starlight in the civilians' eyes. I have no idea how, but it's definitely got to start with Firecracker's downfall.
Firecracker right now seems a little bit untouchable since she has the might of Vought behind her, and Starlight's in a position where she doesn't have all that much left to lose. So if this turns Starlight into like a loose cannon, and kind of the second half of this season is her small little redemption arc, and maybe she gets this awesome superhero moment, I'm all for that. But right now, she's in a bad place, and I hate to see that for our girl because we love Annie. But,
we were talking about it earlier. She's due. She's due for a great come up, like a real nice scene for her, I feel. It's either going to be this one or the next one, and then ball's going to get rolling. The boys are going to back together. Everybody's gonna be smiling and happy, and then they're gonna do some stupid shit.
That doesn't sound like the boys ending though to me.
I ended with they're gonna do some stupid shit. So
yeah, of course.
But
as a team, though, as long as there is together as a team.
Exactly.
Why don't we circle back to this Huey storyline, continuing with his dad in the hospital? Him and his mom are informed that their dad is now what doctors consider brain dead. It's kind of he is only living because of the machines. And since his mom is power of attorney, she says, he signed a do not resuscitate. He would have wanted this. So we're going to pull the plug. And he only has a couple more days to live. Obviously, this pushes Huey towards the Compound V. And how might someone like Huey go about acquiring Compound V? Well, it's through A-Train, who has been wavering and might have reason. Well, he owes Huey one, is what he kind of pulls the Robin card, which he has pulled a couple times with A-Train, but A-Train's finally just like, hey man, if I do this, it's even. Like this is it. And Huey's kind of hesitant, but he's like, fine, yes, this would be it. This would make us even. We also find out that Homelander has personally acquired every last drop of Compound V in existence. So any dosage of Compound V goes through Homelander.
That was nuts in his apartment when he first finds all the breast milk, and then the secret drawer above that's where all the V is. But I was counting. I think there was 10 vials missing, including this one. So I was like, is there any new soups that we can count down? But I don't think we can go through that. But it's interesting because it's like, when did he acquire all of it? Were one of those vials that were missing going to Newman's daughter, Zoe? So it
and they obviously stole one for Kimiko to get her powers back too.
Yeah. So it's an interesting, thought to see if there's going to be anybody else popping up in the end that's a soup because of Homelander. But anyway, good for A-Train for just having a moral compass all of a sudden, man. It's just crazy. I get that we talked about it all the build up for 1 through 3, but he's literally making, like, he could easily die. Like Homelander would smear him against the wall if he found out he did that. And he's doing it just because he feels bad for Huey.
I find it hard to believe that someone as paranoid as Homelander doesn't have video cameras in his room, because he would have caught A-Train if that's the case, much less Ashley, who was leaving a floater in his toilet.
I agree. And like, is he going to notice one's missing? Is he checking that every day and counting? So
that's what I'm thinking. And this is not the first time A-Train has almost been caught with his hand in the cookie jar. So like, if they look into a couple of these things, all signs are going to point to A-Train. So I'm excited to see how that kind of plays out.
I'll play devil's advocate here and say Ashley could just wipe the cameras of that incident herself. That's my only excuse. Because I assume Homelander also probably does have cameras and shit in his room. I understand he, hears everything, so not entirely necessary, but at the same time, Ashley does have access to that probably.
Ashley and A-Train kind of have mutually assured destruction. So I am not opposed to those two kind of being a unstable alliance within Vought Tower that is indirectly assisting the boys' efforts. I feel like that could be a good thing because they're both really under the thumb of Homelander right now and kind of resent that fact. So they're trying everything they can to undermine Homelander, even if it is just taking a dump in his toilet. But continuing on, they are being watched, this A-Train and Huey and Kimiko meeting, through a sniper lens. And sure enough, it is Kimiko's old friend from the Shining Light army that starts firing shots once A-Train leaves. This was actually one of the better action sequences of the 4 episodes so far. If nothing else, Huey holds his own in a 1v1, and watching Kimiko just kind of like getting any item in this office to like make a weapon and a shield. It was just really cool. I liked this action sequence.
I liked it a lot, and I feel like it had to do with Huey being involved, like you're saying, but also because there's like a consequence, because we've seen Kimiko gets stabbed and shot and exploded. We see it here. So it's like, yeah, there's cool action, but there's no like real like threat of like, there being after effect. So, Huey being involved in fighting was actually a lot of fun to watch, and he killed it. And when he made that kill, which like Kimiko showed him where the slices were, he made that kill, and he didn't look scared on his face. He looked angry. So
that was his first. Was that his first body? Like, I know Translucent, like he was a part of it, but that was like Butcher at the end of the day. I think
he killed people when they were freeing Soldier Boy. I think in Russia when he first takes the Temp V. I think he might kill a soldier there.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. He does. Because I was just thinking, based on his reaction there, it made me feel like I was trying to remember if he had kills, but I think you're right. I think there was a time he didn't. Oh yeah, he definitely punched his fist through somebody's chest
that
at
was
some
the
point.
thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Probably
absolutely right.
maybe his first one when he's not on Temp V though, and just an actual human
was, like-
fighting another human. Like Paul said, there
Yeah.
were actually high stakes and a threat level.
Mhm.
I
True.
liked it. I like seeing our boy scrap, and he's
Oh,
pissed.
yeah,
His dad's about
absolutely.
to die. Yeah, he's got some pent up rage to get rid of. So,
Yeah.
continuing on with this scene, we get a little bit of Kimiko's backstory with this mysterious girl introduced in episode 3. Turns out Kimiko actually abducted that girl personally, threw her in the truck, and forced her to fight other kids, essentially. So not only was Kimiko a victim of the Shining Light, she kind of was part of the Shining Light once she grew into it. We know Kimiko, we know she's not about that at all, and she was forced into that life, but it doesn't fully absolve her of those
Yeah.
wrongdoings. And she also gave the girl scars across her face for good measure.
Yeah. So my big question is, could she talk when she was doing this? Like, did the moment of mutism come afterwards? Because she says like she offered her ice cream and threw her in a trunk, but then she was like, then you made me fight and you said fight or die. So I'm just curious to see when that whole thing happens, because the like speech therapy is obviously a big uh storyline going on for her. So I wonder if we're building to the moment where she actually went mute. That being said, I 100% understand where this girl with scars is coming from and why she wants to kill Kimiko. I would do the same
Yeah.
exact thing. So I mean, I'm sure it's some along the lines of like you got abducted by the Shining Light, and if you stuck around long enough, then you actually became like one of them. But you were kind of forced into it. It was either become one of them or basically suffer. So that's what happened to Kimiko. That's what happened to Scarface. I'm assuming we don't know her name yet, do we?
Well, we're going
And have
with
we-
Scarface.
And are we confirming that? Are we confirming that she has powers too? Excuse me.
No, because Kimiko seemed to sympathize with her and did
Mhm.
not want to harm her any further. So I can't deny fully that she has powers, but I don't think so. I haven't gotten that
Mhm.
impression yet.
Yeah, but she left her alive. So
Yep.
I'm
feel
gonna
like
be
she's gonna
honest.
come
This
back
is the
again.
storyline for me that's been. I'm not too crazy about the whole Shining Light
Well,
storyline.
So do I. I feel like we kind of wrapped it up in season 2 when her brother got involved and Stormfront and all of that stuff. I feel like we kind of got closure. They're rehashing it, and it compounds the issue because they separated Frenchie and Kimiko to give them 2 separate storylines that I don't care about. And the one money scene is when they're at TruthCon or whatever, and she's drunk, and Frenchie and Kimiko are like riffing off of each other. That has been the best screen time for either of those characters. But
Yeah.
you know, that's just me venting about life. These are my
Yeah.
personal demons. I have to deal with them, not you guys. So let's finish up this storyline. Huey meets with A-Train, gets the Compound V. They're officially good. Shake hands, whatever. Butcher was hiding in the shadows, and this is where we get the reveal that he had tried Compound V. But Butcher is also there to be like, yo, Huey, this is not the right decision. This is not what you should be doing to save your dad, and you should know that better than anyone.
Everyone has
And-
told him so far that you should let the old man rest, essentially, is how they've been telling it. He's like Butcher is saying, he's going too far to the extent like his dad is already written on paper, essentially in legal paper, that if this happened to him, like he wants the plug pulled, So I think everyone is making the right decision, just telling him, look, this is a terrible situation, but you can't be doing this. You're playing a dangerous game here, especially giving him something that we're not fully capable of understanding quite yet either.
Also, Butcher right here says, I would know better than anybody because I took it in desperation. I nicked it from Frenchie's desk, which is just hysterical.
Yeah.
That Frenchie even has it in the first place. But then he says all it did was push up the big day, I think is what he said, meaning, push up his death day. So it's frustrating that Huey, even brings it, but it's even more frustrating that Huey made the right decision in our eyes, right? because when he goes back to the hospital, he puts it back in his jacket pocket, takes his jacket off, leaves, come back. His jacket is now over the foot of his dad's bed, and it's because his mom grabbed it and grabbed the V and hooked it up to his dad. So
how did she possibly know it was in the jacket unless she saw Huey with it? And like, even at that, how would she have recognized it? Maybe
well, she works as a medicine guru for
you're right, I
Vought,
guess, yeah.
so she would
She's
have the
familiar.
knowledge. Maybe as I was
Right.
watching it, I did not see that timeline of events. I got the impression that she had, independent of
Wow.
Huey's storyline,
Oh,
acquired
okay.
some herself and just snuck it in. But that now that you guys are saying that, I think I just maybe didn't notice
No,
the
no, no, no,
details
no.
of the scene. But
No, I like
it,
that. I hope that was. I would like it better for her character personally, because I don't like her character really at all so far. And I think that would honestly have been an interesting move by her to try and her way of mending things with Huey is by getting the father back. And so she would go and get Compound V on her own to try and make things right with Huey and bring back the person that he personally cares about the most in the world.
Would be nuts, and I would like that. But I think with the jacket and everything, I think it's pretty clear that maybe she came in the hallway, and because she speaks and Huey gets like startled and then like shoves it in his pocket real quick. So maybe she walks in before she says anything. She sees him there holding it, recognizes it, sees him put it in the pocket. And then when he's like, I need air, his jacket's already off. So she just grabs it real quick and hooks it up.
It is weird though, because this would go against everything his mom has been saying through 4 episodes. She's been like, this is what he would have wanted. We can let go. Like, I'm the power of attorney. I'm here to represent his wishes. I also saw a crazy theory that Huey is imagining his mom. And like all of these are just him alone in a room, because I don't think we've seen Huey's mom interact with anybody besides Huey.
This episode. The doctor
was the doctor talking to both of them though.
Well, she nods at the doctor at the end, and then the doctor responds. Okay, so not 100%, maybe not, but I kind of like that. I like that a lot because they're doing that whole thing with Becca and Butcher. So that would be really, really cool.
Because that's also the theory. Remember when Homelander and Butcher had that conversation in Butcher's apartment? Everyone was like, "Oh, but that was imaginary." Yeah,
I thought that was real.
I think there's something.
I thought it was fake, but it was real.
Oh.
I think there's something there with these images of Becca, because in this one, it's right after the Huey conversation. He looks at Becca and says, "What happened with Ezekiel?" And every time we see Becca, it's, you have to carry on. You can't die here. You have to keep pushing. And we thought it was just, his mental psyche trying to support and keep that promise to Becca. What if Becca is a manifestation of the parasite, which parasites don't give a fuck so long as the host survives? What if Becca is a manifestation of like, whatever's going on, and it's really, your body has to survive until I'm good enough to evolve, or whatever winds up happening with this parasite.
I love that idea.
Yeah,
it's
just
just
a good theory. I like it.
Survival adaptation mode, and it just forces the host to picture the one thing that wants it to survive. I dig that a lot. With Huey and his mom, I don't know. I don't think so. That would be really cool.
Do I.
But I don't understand why she did it. Because, like, if she works at Vought, like we were talking about, maybe she doesn't know about, like, the side effects. But, like we were saying, the whole thing of it's supposed to go and be shot in kids because they accept it better for whatever reason. So I hope we're just not ignoring that plot point, because we learned that in season 1.
Yeah. Because then there would be 2 people, you're saying, like Butcher and Huey's dad would be 2 adults that have received it recently and have no side effects.
And if we want to go back to Diabolical, Andy Samberg produced one episode, which was the most beautiful episode and emotional one in all Diabolical. But what that episode was a husband getting Compound V to put into his wife who was dying of cancer. And guess what? The Compound V gave the cancer superpowers, Dave. So
Yeah.
there's something in there to be said about that. But yeah, that was that person's time to go, and she obviously said like, let me pass on, like this isn't the answer, and then sacrifices herself. So if that's the whole storyline that we got in a Boys Diabolical clip like a few years ago, I'm gonna be a little upset if I'm honest, because it doesn't seem
Well, there's
original.
plenty of time for this to blow up in their faces. I mean, next episode, Huey's dad could just explode from the Compound V, or another scenario is that there's a third party at play here that we're not even thinking of. Maybe the mom is just a red herring and it was neither Huey nor the mom that gave him the dosage of V. I feel like it probably was the mom now that we're talking about it, but you know, I'm just trying to throw theories, man. Predictions,
it.
theories. That's what it's all about. But that's really all we had for that Huey storyline. This is how this show goes. We're an hour in right now, and I thought this was going to be like a quick, tidy episode, but we're talking the boys. We always just drag our feet talking about it, and we haven't even gotten to the best storyline, which is the Homelander storyline. So Homelander is going back to where it all began, that underground vault lab that houses what has become known as the Bad Room. And Homelander just goes down the elevator with his Fudgy the Whale cake, and he's just saying hi to all the scientists. Oh, some new faces here. I remember Frank, though. Hey, Frank, how you been?
This is the sadistic Homelander that we fucking love, man. This is where your butthole's just clenching hard. You're just, you know, someone's dying, something's happening. There's no coming back, especially when you find out the communication lines are all cut. No one's making it out of here.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was so beautifully set up and beautifully executed. You were talking about like, this is the Homelander we love. This is classic Anthony Starr killing it as the psychological, happy, smiling in your face, but I'm a killer vibe. It was so good, so good. Every single scene, every line delivered was perfect.
It had the feel of a horror movie. Literally, I was anxious watching these Homelander scenes from start to finish, and that's just good storytelling, show making, whatever you want to call it. But they got the tone perfectly right, and of course, going back to Anthony Starr's just phenomenal acting all the way through. But yeah, a couple people.
They're horror scenes. They're just like horror scenes to me because I'm just waiting for the lasers. I'm waiting for that loud, just sonic boom of the laser beams coming out of his eyes, and it's just going to scare the shit out of me every time, which it did both times, you know, or the one time at least with Frank or whatever, the guy who gets his dick lasered off. That scared the shit out of me. I knew it was
actually was the guy, not Frank.
I knew it was coming, but I still jumped a little bit because he just does it when you're just, he does it when you're just, it's just instant, man. It's instant.
It's perfect. He's so good.
So, I mean, he does kind of anecdotally go back to what his experience was like. He's casually just playing waste paper basketball with this guy. He's like, oh, when I learned this game, I was actually cooking in an oven. And while it didn't char my skin, you better believe it still hurt like the dickens. So, well, I'm shooting this last shot, Frank. Why don't you go in the oven and tell me how it feels? Just get in there, Frank, or I'll kill your entire family. So what's it going to be, Frank? Here's the thing about Homelander. Is this justified? Because these people, like, the line they love to fall back on is I was just following orders and I was just a pawn, another brick in the wall of Vaught's plans. But he's like, none of you seem to have any issues with it at the time. I mean, you were just shooting paper balls in a trash can while I was baking in an oven. Like, these people committed evil acts.
Yeah.
They were
and
complicit.
I think the lack of sympathy is what got them too. Not even that they went through with it. It's the lack of sympathy. Like, they were smiling, like I was burning alive and you were giving a little fist pump because you made your shot. It was really a good shot, Frank. Like, just the little lines like that too. God, he's so good, evil. But I think it's the lack of sympathy goes along with it.
I agree. I think it's mostly the lack of sympathy, to be honest. I feel like if they're dicking around and doing nothing, or if maybe they just kind of I know if they spoke up, that would get them killed immediately probably, but at least like a look at Homelander like, oh, this is kind of fucked up, or just anything more than just shooting paper basketballs while a kid is just burning alive in an oven. I can't, they got what they deserved. I don't know, but
It's I loved when he's like, Frank, do you remember that moment when this happened? He's like, no, I can't recall it. And he said, it's funny.
Yeah.
I have had nightmares my entire life
Mhm.
reliving this memory, and you can't even remember it.
Mhm.
Get your ass in the oven. It is diabolical. It really is. The only reason I felt bad for them was because I knew he would kill them in the worst imaginable ways.
It wouldn't be
But
quick.
it's not like they didn't deserve
Punished. They
like
deserve
they had
punishment.
it coming to them. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's tough because Homelander is clearly evil. So it's very difficult for me to side with him.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness, these scenes were fantastic. So Frank gets his, and then it's time for Marty to face the music as well. Like the lab is so creepy. They're panning across like on the wall where he had his height measured over the years and stuff, and it's like that was his version of a childhood. Like there are these human elements to it, but go ahead.
At 16, it stops being John. John is crossed out, and then it becomes Homelander. So wherever he hit, that 5'10" mark, I feel like that's where the switch happened. And I'm sure that was all years of just being in that room, being psychologically molded and like physically tortured. I can't even imagine what you went through. When you do that, you're like, okay, it kind of justifies everything that he's doing outside of it, right? Like, I get what you're saying, Brian. He is a psychopath, but you're like, yeah, it makes sense why he is.
He was created to be that way. Go ahead.
And he kept correcting them when they were calling him John. He kept correcting them to Homelander. I truly believe that's kind of him siphoning out the last of his humanity. We've seen him talking to the mirrors a lot, saying the mirror Homelander has been telling him, you need to rip it out like rip it off like a bandage. We need to cut it out like it's a disease. And I think them trying to reach out to his human side by calling him John and trying to reach that level, and him shutting it down and saying Homelander, I think this is him definitely crossing that line into being full psychotic, God thinking, he thinks of himself as a god now.
And I think he's finally caught on to the trick, because Stillwell, when she wanted to appeal to his humanity back in season 1, would be like, John, come on, it's me. Right. Maeve would do the same thing when she knew she was kind of on the ropes with him. And now Homelander's just not having any of it. He's just like, nope, I'm Homelander now. This is what you made me. So that was fantastic. And I guess we got to just dive into this Marty scene. Marty was supposed to be one of the good ones, right? But Homelander reasoned out that there was like a 10-minute window every day when they were switching the film or whatever that he could get away with doing what young men do. And Marty used that to come up with the nickname Squirt. Could you imagine a kid in this situation? You have the audacity to come up with like a vile nickname, like poking fun at him, and the whole thing gets me pissed off at everybody involved.
Yeah, I didn't really feel bad for Marty at all while this whole thing was happening. Even when the lasers came out, I didn't really feel that bad because he seems like a son of a bitch. But what Homelander does that's so great is like he talks and smiles right in their face, and he almost gives them hope. Because before this, he's looking at the height marker and he's like, hey, Marty, come here for a sec. I'd like to apologize for Frank. I got a little grumpy. I'm sorry. Can you forgive me? And Marty's like, of course, man, these things happen. And he's like giving him a little hope, but then he like asks him one more question that like brings him back to reality. Like, hey, remember when you saw me and gave me that terrible nickname? And yeah, what he does to Marty, he makes him drop his pants in front of everybody. I knew that was going to be awkward, but it was still hard to watch. But his psycho laughing was amazing. It was so good. It was so bad and so good at the same time.
And of course, the worst part about it all is that Marty is alive. It's not an instant kill for him. And it's whoever the woman is, I forget her name. I didn't write it down. But when she steps in, she's the one that's like, okay, put him out of his misery. And So that's the twisted way of Homelander, is that he knows that Marty's suffering too, and he's only savoring in that pain and agony that he's putting him through.
So Barbara finally comes and tells him to put Marty out of his misery, which he does with the head stomp. And she says, "Can we talk in private?" And Homelander knows just the room where they can talk in private. And that leads us to the bad room. And Barbara, I got the impression that she was probably right below Vogelbaum, who gets a name drop in this episode as probably the hands-on person running the day-to-day within the lab. Probably that Marty guy reported to her was what I was getting the feeling of.
Yeah, I felt like she was number 2.
But she is able to give us a little bit of the behind the curtain of what Vought was trying to do here. I think the biggest takeaway was that they brought in literal psychologists to develop him to just crave this need to be loved and accepted. And she said, we got in there and twisted your mind to do that. And it was probably the most successful thing we did in this lab was create you to just necessitate love and attention and affection and acceptance.
Mm-hmm. Insane.
Which has been the savior to humanity, honestly. If not for that one feature of Homelander, I'm pretty sure the world would have already been ended by now.
I mean, yeah, the fail-safe to when you're making the most powerful thing in the world to make it not go against you is just to make it like mentally not be able to go against you. It needs you because it needs the love and it needs the attention. Mm-hmm. So it's so evil, but makes so much sense about why Homelander is like he is, and he needs the people love and he needs the people attention. He can't sit off to the side while his son takes the spotlight. Like he psychologically cannot do it. And I think the line that really gets him is Barbara at the end says, "Your need for love is so deep, it's so human." And he's like, see, that's where you're wrong.
Yep.
I'm getting rid of that part. And we don't see what happens. We just see the aftermath of, but he goes, "Let me show you why it's called the bad room." And that last scene of him going up the elevator just covered in blood and smiling and happy and loving it made me scared for episodes 5 through 8.
I can't wait. We've been saying it for like 2 seasons now. Homelander's going to snap, and I think him visiting his past and doing what evil Homelander has been telling himself to cut out that human side of him, and I think that's really coming in these next few episodes.
Or will he come back nice and refreshed? He's dealt with all his baggage, and maybe now he can let a little bit more of that humanity go.
Yeah, guys, I've seen the error in my ways.
Yeah.
Insane.
I thought it was crazy that Barbara said you were strong enough to break out of this lab whenever you wanted, but you could not go again. Like you were afraid that we would be disappointed if you did that. And also her just painting the picture of his birth where he lasered out of his dead mom's belly and rose with the umbilical cord still attached. It was like it was a biblical picture. Like I was there when it happened. It was
they were all afraid of you because you killed literally the moment you were born. Like the nurses, your mother. So she was just trying to go off by playing. Everybody was just doing their job because they were scared, which, Barbara, I don't know what you were thinking, spitting coming down here, but you were trying to say, make him feel small too. Doesn't it make you feel small, making him come down and suffer? I'm like, Barbara, this attitude that you're taking towards this conversation is not going to help right now. What are you doing?
I got the feeling Barbara knew exactly how this was going to end, and she was okay facing her past. But it was unfortunate for the new scientists who probably had nothing to do with Homelander.
I put that on Barbara. I put that on Barbara.
Oh, fair enough.
She probably did it to break her, and that led to everything. So her fault. But like, is there going to be repercussions from this? Like, this is Vought. This is the basement B6 of Vought. Like, is there going to be repercussions, or is it just he's so beyond that and he doesn't give a shit? He's ready to make the world for soups now. Like, this seems like the big step. He's literally going against Vought.
He is Vought though. He's like the acting CEO, him and Sage. So he like needs Vought. I think it's just like he's transcended needing Vaught's approval or disapproval for anything. And that's like, I don't know if this will empower him to go full psychopath, anti-humans, full on soups, or I was kind of joking when I said it, but this also was somewhat of a closure on his past and those demons. So maybe he's not going to be better after this experience.
No, I doubt
I
it.
don't know. I really don't know. What I can say is that the series is in a really, really, really good spot right now. I'm interested in pretty much every storyline other than, not to beat a dead horse, but the Frenchie and Kimiko stuff.
Yeah, this definitely feels like the all is lost moment of the season where everybody is at like the lowest point right now, pretty much. So I'm definitely ready for the up and up. But that being said, like we were talking about, this episode was amazing. This episode was so fun to watch. So
For sure.
if the end of the season is as good as the first half, I'll be very happy.
Dave, any lasting thoughts before I close us out here?
Nope. I know we talked a lot of shit on the episode, but I still think this was one of my favorite episodes. I won't say of all time of The Boys, but definitely of the season. Definitely the best of the season. And I'm continuing to love this show. I cannot wait to see what happens in the upcoming episodes.
We didn't even talk about, but we'll bring up real quick. Scrape my fucking brains out. That ridiculous scene between the Deep and Sage, but there's nothing even crazy to go into. That was just more explanation. But yeah, adding that comic relief into everything as intense as it is just the cherry on top.
Yep. And just to reiterate, I think this was probably the best episode so far in season 4. I already said I love where pretty much all of the characters are at. I think it's going to make for a compelling watch for the latter half of this season. And I am looking forward to getting right into episode 5. But that's going to do it for us. As always, if you like what you heard, give Bingetown TV a follow on Twitter and Instagram. Visit us on bingetowntv.com and subscribe to our show on Spotify, YouTube, the Apple Podcast app, or wherever else you may find your podcast. Once again, we are Bingetown TV, and thanks for listening.
Boom.